Oh my days, Villa fans. Welcome to Up the Villa podcast. If you are new to our channel, subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comment section down below on Nottingham Forest 2, Aston Villa 0, and drop a like on this stream. So, bitterly frustrated. Such a frustrating game. End product was just disappeared. I mean, hopefully tomorrow they're all going to be in there and on shooting practice, crossing, delivery, first touch training, because that was all severely lacking in that game for me. Bitterly disappointed with the game on the way it went. And yeah, just a bit of a stinker really, and we aren't used to stinkers, are we? But as always, we are going to review the game, the match reaction of Forest v Aston Villa. So no other context really is needed on the match reaction. So literally, you just say what you see. So first off, I just think we was just off it. First off, I think we were just so lackluster in our organisation and the way the midfield was and the balance of the team in the first half. I felt like that was probably one of our weakest parts of our game was the first half. And I think the first half for me sort of set the tone for the whole game, and it sort of just flew into Nottingham Forest's path really of how they wanted to play. Fair play to Nottingham Forest. If there's any Forest fans watching, you played really well. You did exactly what you needed to do. You dug in, you sat in there, you hit us on the break. So that was their tactic. You could see that's what it was for the high line. So fair play to them on getting the win. But from a Villa's point of view, we know Emery wants control. We know Emery wants to control games. And you'll look at the stats and you'll see that Aston Villa controlled the game. Aston Villa controlled possession. Aston Villa dictated the play. But for Unai and for us, that's not good enough on the way that we played today. And I think that first half for me just was severely lacking. And I don't normally go to the tactical pad in a match reaction, but I'm gonna go to it today because I just want to highlight where I think the problem was in that first half. And I don't want to sound like I told you so, but I highlighted the problem of how we could potentially set up against Nottingham Forest in the predicted lineup. And I think the problem for me in this game, first half, was Kamara's position. Kamara's position in that first half, having to screen that right back, which then had to mean that McGinn went into central midfield. So then McGinn made up that double pivot. Now, the problem for me in that first half was our control on midfield. Nottingham Forest have got a very good midfield. They've got Sangare, who is a really good player, Dominguez, Mangala, Gibbs White out wide, and Elanga. And the problem for me, for Aston Villa in this game, was this area here, because we hadn't got McGinn, who would be in that normal position if it meant Kamara was in the double pivot. Yes, he could go forward. But I just felt like in the first half, we really missed McGinn higher up. But because we had to sacrifice Kamara into this area here, which then meant in midfield, McGinn has to go into that double pivot. It was so disjointed in that first half. Then what it allowed Nottingham Forest to do was it enabled them to go down this area here with Elanga, acres of space, because he knows he can get in behind this area here. Matty Cash has committed forward. We've got Kamara who's screening. He's not actually playing as the right back. He's screening. And then Elanga's through over there. Time and time again in that first half, that ball over the top, that threat out wide was just catching us time and time again. And for me, that was one of the areas, especially in the first half, where we just really couldn't get a grip on it. You know, Kamara was dawdling at the edge of the 18-yard box at times. He was dispossessed, but luckily he got the foul. And I just felt like we were just living on the edge. And I think that was the way the team was just set up in that first half for me. I think we were just too disjointed. We did have spells in the first half. Zaniolo at times got into some really, really good areas. You know, he was getting into these sort of areas, but the same trait for the whole game of the end product all game was atrocious from everybody. I'd cut Luca Dean a little bit of slack because I felt like he was getting in those positions at times, and he was actively a threat, especially in that first half. But you know that the finishing in that first half, we'd got Diaby with a lofted shot at the back post. We've got Zaniolo who went in and he did a sliding tackle and he just really couldn't just get any contact on the ball. But yeah, it was just a bit of a mess in that first half, really, and it allowed Forest to live off those moments on transition. And we spoke about all week that they're a little bit like West Ham, that on transition they're really, really dangerous. And I think for any side, you know, that threat here of having and being able to get in these spaces here and to get in these spaces, that's an area that you can really exploit Villa. But you know, the control for me comes from the strikers pressing, comes from us keeping the ball and having more of a structured midfield. Winning that ball up higher up the pitch doesn't really allow these sort of cross-field sort of balls into these sort of like channels, really. And that's what they was able to do. They were able to just pop off balls, which, because we are slightly vulnerable from pushing forward, it meant that in that transition zone, they were able to just break on us, and it looked really messy from a Villa point of view. And I think that was just the first half in a nutshell, really. And it was disappointed, but second half he made the change, didn't he? So Emery made the change. He took off Zaniolo. So what that really means is that Zaniolo would actively be Leon Bailey here. If we just want to be more professional, then we'll try and find Bailey and we'll put Bailey on. So we'll put Bailey on. So Bailey goes on, Zaniolo goes off, but then that means that there's a change in system then. So that allows McGinn to go back on the left, allows Kamara to go in the middle. Matty Cash is then actively an acting fullback. So it then looks a little bit like this, and we should have started to see a little bit more structure. And I think in the second half, we did look like we had a little bit more structure. I mean, they didn't really cause us too many problems in that second half, did they? But again, we got done out. We got sort of done out wide in this area. Start of the second half, the ball goes into Awonyi. He holds it up, and then it goes into Mangala. He has a strike. And Martinez, he's flapping with that hand that, you know, that keepers tend to like to go with, that sort of left hand rather than the comfortable right hand. And we 2-0 down, and we've got it all to do, really. And I think that changing system, what we could have possibly gone for in the second half, would have probably got us, I don't know, maybe would have made the difference. But you know, the fair play to Forest, because what Forest did is they scored at the right moments. They scored an early goal, which then meant that Villa had to come on to them even more. We couldn't really chill on the ball like what we normally do and invite the opposition on. It meant that they're not interested in doing that, are they? They're not interested in pressing Villa. Villa want the opposition to come and press us, and then we can pop it off into different areas. But, you know, when you're 1-0 down in the first sort of 10 minutes, that game plan's out the window. So Villa have to be the aggressors. And it just left space. And then going into that second half 2-0 down, you've just got it all to do. And we have to score early, really. And we did have some chances, didn't we? Watkins had a header. Diaby had a low left shot to the left-hand side of the keeper. Bailey had a header that he just went off the back of his head. Tielemans fired one over. Luca Dean had an opportunity to get one in the box. So we created ample amounts of chances today. Like, we created so many chances, but the finishing was just woeful. absolutely woeful the finishing was. And if we had to have a little look at some of the stats from the game on how the game was, it's probably great reading for Aston Villa. 74% possession, 13 shots, only 3 on target, 6 off target, 4 block shots. We had 10 corners, they had none. We played them offside 9 times, so the high line was working really, really well. But yeah, we had 2 big chances. We missed 2 big chances. We made 637 passes. We had 91% passing accuracy, 62% passing accuracy off long balls. So, very, very frustrating game. But, on another day, we probably take one of those chances. I think our overall possession-based play was decent. We got into some really, really good areas. I can't really say that I'm on here now fuming with the performance or angry with the performance. I don't think that's the case. I just think we were way off it. We created chances. We got in good spaces. But I just think we lost it in that first half with the control of the first half. I think it was just too erratic, and we played into their hands, and they just hit us at the right moments, like I say. So disappointing. I think some players were slightly off from their standards that we've seen recently. If I have to go to the player ratings, which I will, don't look at the right because this is the ones from Luton that hasn't been updated. Ryan, he's a bit like the performance. Martinez, I would give Martinez a 4. I think the first goal, I think he was slightly to the left. Probably should have positioned a little bit more centrally, and he might have been able to get to it. Second goal, massively at fault, obviously, because he saved it and it's gone in his own net. I actually felt like Conser and Power were really good. I thought they were decent. I wouldn't say that they were at the detriment of the performance. I think Luca Dean, I'd probably say, although we got into some really, really good areas, the delivery at time, the accuracy at time was probably a little bit off it. Cash, I thought, was quite poor. I thought, especially first half, when he was getting in some advanced areas, I think he would get into those decent areas. But I think what happened with Cash in that first half, because McGinn was then going into that double pivot, it kind of really meant that when you looked at the sort of, this is McGinn. Imagine this is McGinn. So McGinn would go into that sort of double pivot there. Cash would go forward. Kamara would screen. And where there was that sort of gaping gap, especially on this side here, there was no one really for him to ever sort of cut it back into. So he was having to come back inside, or he was having to play it back to a defender. So I think that probably didn't help Cash, but I thought he was probably a 4. Kamara had a bit of an up and down game, didn't he? He was in the double pivot, then he was out of it, then he was right back, then he was screening, he dwelled on the edge of the box, lost the ball. Thought he was quite poor, Kamara, today, so I'd probably go, he did make a good last-ditch challenge at one point as well, so I'd go 5, Kamara. Luiz was trying a little bit too hard at times, but, he was still getting on the ball. McGinn, first half, I thought was not really in the game. Second half, when he went down to that left-hand side, I thought he was a lot better. Zaniolo, 5. Like, I don't see the hate with him at times, because he gets in the right areas, but it's just that final finish at times. So, I don't think you can really begrudge him for getting into those areas. That's what he's in the team for. So I'd go Zaniolo 5. I'd go Diaby 5. I thought he was really poor today. Watkins 5. I thought he had a header and he was off it. Bailey 5. Carlos, when he came on, I don't think you can really rate Carlos. Tielemans, I don't think you can really rate him on when he came on either. So 4s, 5s, 6s across the board. not the best, really. But like I say, I think it's just one of those performances where you just got to just dust off and go again at home against Fulham. And then we've got Alkmaar, obviously, coming on Tuesday before the Fulham game. But missed opportunity. Big missed opportunity today, because if we'd have won today, we'd have gone into the top four. And, you know, if you look at Villa this season, the aspirations on where we want to go and what we want to do, should we be beating Forest away? Should we at least be getting a draw at the Forest ground? So I think most fans would probably say yes. So, you know, we've dropped points today, and I imagine that Emery won't be happy with that performance today. I think there was a lot of players today that were way below their normal standards. So, bitterly frustrated. At patches, I think we played all right, but you know, we've lost the game. So obviously as a fan, you're going to be disappointed from that game. So, yeah, frustrated, annoyed. Got to be better going forward, but you know, we've been playing so well recently, and I think we'll probably bounce back really well after this anyway. So, Villa fans, let me know your thoughts. I've just been honest, like I always am. So, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Drop a like, subscribe, up the Villa.